This week we move straight to Vicksburg as the Western theater of the war nears towards its greatest battle. On the 15th, we return to the Army of the Tennessee under Major General Ulysses S. Grant. He and his forces are in Jackson, Mississippi, in the aftermath of the battle there. The city has seen a huge display of anarchy, with Confederate stragglers and deserters, moving and looting and pillaging along with Federal soldiers celebrating, and recently freed slaves. Seeing the destruction of Jackson, Grant organizes patrols to bring the city back to fold, and then orders Major General William T. Sherman with his 15th Corps to raze the city to the ground.
Did the work most effectually.
Grant has split the enemy before him. 35 miles to his west is Vicksburg, and a few miles east of Vicksburg was Lieutenant General John C. Pemberton's force at Big Black River, and behind Grant is full General Joseph E. Johnston. The Army of the Tennessee, Grant's army, is ready to advance on his opponent. But does he need to? A spy comes to Grant with an intercepted message. Johnston is asking Pemberton to meet up with him. If Grant can intercept, he'll be able to destroy the enemy's force. He orders Major General James McPherson with his 17th Corps to Clinton, Mississippi, Major General McClellan with his 13th Corps 6 miles west of Clinton. Sherman and his 15th Corps are still in Jackson, burning it to the ground. Pemberton's units on the 16th meet with Grant's vanguard. He quickly moves his forces into a defensive position, Pemberton. This position is Champion Hill, and despite Pemberton's 22,000-man force being tired from days of marching and counter-marching, he could not find a better defensive position if he tried. And he did try. 140 feet high plateau with rough ground before him, disorganizing the enemy, and disguising his number, position, and heavy guns. Grant has 29,000 men, outnumbering Pemberton, with more quickly coming, but he faces a problem of his force being split. He needs Major General James McPherson to link up with Major General McClellan. Can they do it? The battle begins when the 12th Division of Brigadier General Alvin P. Hovey, a great commander, coming under fire. He is not with McClellan, whose corps he is assigned to, but instead McPherson's. The command has already been messed up. Hovey hastily moves to deploy his line of battle, and upon completion, attacks the enemy uphill. He is successful, advancing 600 yards and having the 24th Iowa seize the battery. They are able to throw off Confederate Brigadier General Stephen D. Lee, no relation to the more famous Lees, and his brigade from the position. Then the rest of Confederate Major General Carter L. Stevenson's division comes to bear and throws Hovey back. A tense firefight continued between the two divisions. The 12th Union Division is having the worst of it and needs reinforcements, which luckily do come. McPherson sends forward Major General Jack Black Logan, 3rd Division, who forms on the right of Hovey. Major General Ulysses S. Grant arrives and orders Logan to send a brigade to Hovey. The Union continue to strengthen their position, with Brigadier General Marcellus M. Crocker moving in with his 7th Division. These two men are those who were most heavily engaged at Raymond and earned high praise.
I regarded Logan and Crocker as being as competent division commanders as could be found in or out of the Army, and both equal to much higher command. Crocker, however, was dying of consumption when he volunteered. His weak condition never put him on the sick report when there was a battle in prospect, as long as he could keep on his feet.
The battle goes on for hours as the two sides trade volleys into each other. Hovey and Crocker are taking the Confederate musketry violently, but not making much progress. Logan moves further west, trying to flank the enemy. Grant goes to Logan, who has just pinned Pemberton.
I found him, Logan, near the road leading down to Baker's Creek. Neither Logan nor I knew that we had cut off the retreat of the enemy. Just as the juncture, a messenger came from Hovey asking for more reinforcements. There was none to spare. I then gave an order to move McPherson's command by the left flank around to Hovey. This uncovered the rebel line of retreat, which was soon taken advantage by the enemy.
Hovey, Logan, and Crocker, after 4 hours of fighting, are able to make a real push against the rebels, aided with 2 Union batteries. The Confederates collapse and rout.
We lost a large amount of artillery. The army was much demoralized, many regiments behaved badly.
Then from Colonel Edward Gibbon, commander of the 35th Alabama.
At this time, our friends gave way and came rushing to the rear panic-stricken. I brought my regiment to charge bayonets, but even this could not check them in their flight. Guards of 3 regiments passed through. We collared them, begged them, and abused them in vain.
Colonel Goodwin is in the 1st Division of Pemberton's force, which has been cut off from Pemberton. Instead of trying to link up with their actual commander, the division moves to full General Johnston. Major General Grant has won a great victory. Hovey lost a third of his division, and Grant lost in total 410 killed, 1,844 wounded, and 187 missing, for a total of 2,457 to achieve it. But Pemberton suffered 381 killed, 1,018 wounded, and 2,441 missing or captured, for a total of 3,840 casualties to lose the day. Grant tries to pursue the enemy, sending forward 2 divisions of McClellan's force, but they aren't able to do much. The way to Vicksburg is open. For the commander of the Army of the Tennessee, it was a missed opportunity. First, he had Pemberton surrounded and didn't realize it. But worse, way worse, is Major General John A. McClellan. Grant had 32,000 men and was barely able to get 16,000 into the fight. McClellan was right there, able to engage the enemy, but besides from Hovey's division, the Corps did nothing.
McClellan, with 2 divisions, was within a few miles of the battlefield long before noon, and in easy hearing. I sent him repeated orders by staff officers, fully competent to explain to him the situation. These traversed the woods, separating us without escort, and directed him to push forward, but he did not come.
McClellan made no effort to join the fight, and actually sent orders to Hovey to disengage, which Grant luckily countermanded. As the 16th turns to the 17th, Pemberton reaches the Big Black Rivers Bridge. Grant is close behind. Pemberton deploys 5,000 men of Brigadier General John Bowen's division and Brigadier General John Vaughan's brigade. They also have 18 guns. Pemberton is running low on artillery, having lost 27 guns at Champion Hill. Brigadier General Eugene A. Carr takes his 14th Division to move against those 5,000 men. Before him is swampy ground, and the Confederates are again behind good defensive terrain. Coming up on Carr's left is Peter J. Osterhaus, a brigadier general with the 19th Division. On his extreme right was the 2nd Brigade of Carr's division, commanded by Brigadier General Michael K. Lawler.
When it comes to just plain hard fighting, I would rather trust old Mike Lawler than any of them. An officer from Banks' staff came up and presented me with a letter from General Halleck, dated the 11th of May. It had been sent by the way of New Orleans to Banks to be forwarded to me. It ordered me to return to Grand Gulf and to cooperate from there with Banks against Port Hudson, then to return with our forces to besiege Vicksburg. I told the officer that the order came too late, and that Halleck would not give it now if he knew our position. The bearer of the dispatch insisted that I ought to obey the order, and was giving arguments to support his position, when I heard great cheering to the right of our line, and looking in that direction, saw Lawler in his shirt sleeves, leading a charge upon the enemy. I immediately mounted my horse and rode in the direction of the charge, saw no more of the officer, who delivered the dispatch.
No such order was given. Grant wrote this as an old sick man, and the only order by Halleck of that day is not definite, but the account of Lawler is correct. He charges before any order is given, seeing an opening, and smashes the Confederates. The rebels break and rout, burning the bridge as they run. Confederates lost 1,751 men total, with 1,700 being captured. The Union lost 27 killed and 194 wounded. Grant orders bridges to be built, and before the night of the 17th, they are ready. Bonfires are lit, and from a log with a cigar, Grant watches as his army moves onto Vicksburg. The 18th of May, McClellan and McPherson reach east of the Vicksburg fortifications. Sherman moves to the north and occupies the Chickasaw Bluffs he had failed to take in December. Grant now has his line of supply and communication back in order, using Admiral Porter's ships of the Mississippi. Grant meets with General Sherman. Sherman was the most apprehensive of the movement. A long march without a supply line? No way.
Until this moment, I had never thought your expedition a success. I never could see the end clearly, until now. But this is a campaign. This is a success if we never take the town.
The town of Vicksburg has a 7-mile-long defensive line, 60 days or so of rations, and 30,000 or so Confederates. Everyone sees how strong Vicksburg's defenses are.
A long line of high, rugged, irregular bluffs, clearly cut against the sky, crowned with cannon which peered ominously from Embrasures to the right and left, as far as the eye could see. Lines of heavy rifle pits surrounded with headlocks ran along the bluffs, connecting fort with fort and filled with veteran infantry. The approaches to this position were frightful, enough to appall the stoutest heart.
General John C. Pemberton has created a strong defensive structure, but he is stuck in it. He has been outfought and outgeneraled for weeks. His force has no confidence in him. They're sick and morale is low. Full General Joe Johnston, love that nickname, sends Pemberton in order to break out and link up with them. Johnston has been raising reinforcements to Frederick Grant's rear.
If it is not too late, evacuate Vicksburg and its dependencies and march to the northeast.
Pemberton holds the counts of war, and they're all in agreement. They can't break out.
I have determined to hold Vicksburg as long as possible.
The Army of the Tennessee and its commanders are jubilant, if bordering on overconfidence. They had spent a long time in swamps and marching in rain and mud in the great Mississippi summer heat. Now they have utensils, full rations, and tents. They're in an organized camp. Their lines of communication, supply, and reinforcement are strong. Another corps will be here any moment. Grant is invincible, and Vicksburg will be taken any moment now. The Federal line is 15 miles long from Sherman in the north to McPherson in the east and McClellan in the south, with the Mississippi River on the west being held by Admiral Porter's gunboats. With defeats from Raymond to Jackson to Champion Hill to Big Black River, the enemy must surely be demoralized, and if he can assault right now, he can then turn his full attention to Joseph E. Johnston. Grant orders on the 19th an assault on the Stockade Redan in the north, being held by Brigadier General Louis Herbert's brigade. Hope I'm saying that right. Who cares? Sherman's corps assaults the enemy, but are repulsed by heavy gunfire. At 2 p.m., the Union artillery opens up on the Confederate positions. Major General Francis P. Blair takes his division and strikes the rebels' defenses again. They get stuck in a ditch and are forced back with the two sides dueling with musketry, but the Union is forced to retreat. Grant suffered 157 killed, 777 wounded, and 8 missing. Confederates suffered 8 killed and 62 wounded. Grant had failed to defeat the enemy. It cost him dearly and raised his opponent's morale. But no matter, next time he'll be ready. It won't be rushed. Grant soon gets more supplies. His men were well fed on the march, but now, after foraging hardtack, is plentiful. A cheer of hardtack goes through the Union camp. I don't know. The 20th is spent with spades, creating trenches for the Army of the Tennessee. On the 21st, the Union is resupplied with coffee, meat, and beans, a luxury of the war. Then we move even further south to Port Hudson, the target of General Banks. He had sent his 1st Division under Major General Christopher C. Augur to seize Plainstone, the final line of retreat for the rebels, and a place of landing for Banks' 19th Corps. The battle begins with Colonel Benjamin H. Grierson, the famous raider, taking his brigade of cavalry and beginning skirmishing with the rebels under Colonel Frank W. Powers. Then Augur soon arrives with his infantry and begins pressing Powers. Colonel William R. Miles, a Confederate in Port Hudson, moves to reinforce those at Plainstone. When he arrives, it's too late for him, with Powers being forced back. Miles ignores this, assaults and routs some Union infantry, but they soon regroup and decimate Miles' force. Augur wins the day, though at a cost of 150 casualties to the Confederates' 100. With this, Port Hudson, like Vicksburg, is surrounded, and Major General Nathaniel P. Banks begins the encirclement of the rebel positions. Then there is Sickles, and we must look to his friend and ally, Brigadier General Thomas F. Meagher, commander of the Irish Brigade. His forces did well, acting as the rearguard at Chancellorsville, but this was costly, and his men were so low in number, they were barely a regiment in size. He demands them be taken out of action so they can replenish their companies and refill their ranks. Secretary of War Edwin Stanton doesn't respond. In order to gain his attention, Meagher offers his resignation. This angers the War Department, and he is removed from action. While Sickles' star rises in the wake of Chancellorsville, his allies seem to diminish. That's where the week ends. After the disaster of Chancellorsville, the tide of the war has seemed to even out. Sure, the war might seem focused on the states of Maryland and Virginia, but great action has been had outside of the East Coast. Full General Braxton Bragg has been defeated by Major General William S. Rosecrans. Major General Grant has surrounded his opponents, and Major General Banks has sieged the rebels. There was much to look forward to. While Lee's biding his time, trying to gather strength, Lieutenant General James Longstreet returned to him on the 9th, it isn't enough. Jefferson Davis must be panicking about the Mississippi situation. What happens there? We must wait and see. Hello, it's the entire Civil War week by... Oh, God. Hello, it's the entire Civil War week by week team here, and things are returning to normal. Well, not at all. I mean, Vicksburg is heating up. It's just I don't have to deal with Chancellorsville anymore. And I mean, the Ivan Turchin video came out, but who knows how many specials I'm going to be able... Things are changing around here, and hopefully towards the better. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did enjoy it, could you please like and subscribe? Unless you're already subscribed, please don't hit that button again. Right now you should be seeing a recommended video, and if you want even more Civil War content, a playlist. Probably here. I'm not good with directions. And I hope to see you next week. A long line of high, rugged, irregular bluffs, clearly cut against the sky, crowned with cannon which peered ominously from embrasures to the right and left as far as the eye could see. Lines of heavy rifle pits surrounded with headlocks ran along the bluffs, connecting fort with fort and filled with veteran infantry. Approaches to this position were frightful, enough to appall the stoutest heart.